Hey folks, welcome back to another review right here on the Dice Tower with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're going to be taking a look at this little fella right here, Cities from Devir. This is designed by Steve Finn and Phil Walker Harding, and it is a two-dimensional and three-dimensional city building game. Let's get down to the table and take a look. So here I have a two-player game set up for you. Now the main difference in two-player games as opposed to three- or four-player games is the number of workers you're going to have available to you. In a three- and four-player game, you're only going to have 4 workers available to you. In a two-player game, you're going to have 8 workers available to you. The other difference is that you're going to be in a two-player game going for 4 rounds instead of 8 rounds like in a 3- to 4-player game, because you are going to be taking double the amount of stuff as you get out there. In a 3- to 4-player game, you're only going to be able to place 1 worker in each row. In a 2-player game, you're going to be able to place 2 workers in each row. So just keep that in mind as we go through the teach. Now the whole point of the game is to score as many points as you can going along this track around the outside, but points are not calculated until the end of the game. Some of the things that you can get points for are, first of all, public goals that are going to be represented by these different city boards that are placed into the map. So the game does come with no less than 4 different city boards, and they are double-sided. So you have Rio de Janeiro on one side, New York on another, which is what we have set up here. But then you also have Buenos Aires and Barcelona. And then you also have Lisbon and Venice. And then you also have Sydney and Mexico City in the base game. These represent races that each of the players are going to be working towards to try to get it the fastest. The faster you get it, the more points you're going to be able to get to it. So once you achieve the goal, you simply put one of your scoring rings on the leftmost space on that area that represents the goal that you just finished. Another way to score points in the game is by these scoring cards, and this also represents one of the rows that you're going to send your workers out to choose what scoring card you're going to put into your hand. So for example, if I want to choose this card, I'll simply take that card and put it into my tableau face up, and then one of my workers goes right there. Now, as I said earlier, in a 2-player game, you're going to be able to place 2 workers there, but in a 3- and 4-player game, it's really easy to keep track of where you can and can't go, because once you have a worker there in a 3- and 4-player game, you know that you can't go to that row anymore for the rest of that round. Another way that you're going to be able to score points is by putting these feature tiles into your cityscape once you have it built. Feature tiles that have a green background are going to go in park spaces on your cityscape. Feature tiles with a blue background are going to go in water spaces. There are some others that are, for example, this monument tile right here, that are actually going to be placed where a building would normally go, and it will just score you 2 points but at the end of the game. But you are going to have these that are going to be kind of like a set collection. Each unique feature tile that is in a water or park space is going to score you a number of points. So if you have 4 unique feature tiles in one contiguous water space, that's going to score you 10 points. The same thing is true with green-backed tiles on park spaces. You have 1, 2, 3, or 4, which will give you 1, 3, 6, or 10 points at the end of the game. And each contiguous park and or water area is scored separately. Now, the last 2 rows that we haven't gone over yet, the city tile row and then the city buildings row down here, are where you're actually going to be getting the pieces that you need to build your cityscape in your own tableau. Each player will start with one of these start tiles at the beginning of the game, and they get to look at the board first before they choose which one. And once they've chosen which one, let's say that I'm going to go ahead and go with this one right here. I'm going to start with this one, and let's say that my opponent will start with this one right here. These 2 are going to be taken and put back in the box. Now that I have the start of my cityscape right here, when I put a meeple down here, I see that I have 3 face-up tiles that I can see what they are, what they're going to add to my tableau. there's also one here that is face down, just like over here. Maybe these three aren't going to be anything that I need or want. I can always choose to take this one, and maybe it'll give me what I want. Maybe it'll be worse. We don't know, but that's the choice that you have. So if I take my meeple here and I place it out here, and I want to take this tile, I'm going to place my meeple there, and then I have to place this tile adjacent to my other tile to where one flat side meets an entire flat side. You don't necessarily have to match the same types of edges. For example, I would not have to place it like this, or I could even place it like that. It just has to be that one full side is on one full side. I cannot, for example, do something like this. The colors of these boxes here represent the kinds of buildings that can be placed there. And that's important because if, for example, if I'm stuck with this one right here, I don't have anywhere to build red buildings, so they wouldn't do me any good. So now that I know what kind of buildings I am able to have, that makes it important for me to make sure that I get this set down here. So if I were to choose this set on the fourth row, I would take all four of these and add them to my buildings, like so. If I have one that could go here, I also have the opportunity to build up right here as well. But I wouldn't be able to do something like this, however. You always have to put the same color on the same color, like so. But if I didn't want to build a level 2 building, I could put this over here and have two level 1 green buildings. The last space on each of the rows has a little bit of a different thing. The first two, the scoring cards and the city building tiles, these are just, you don't know what they are. So if none of these are what you want, then you could go here and take this one. Same thing with this row here. Down here, you have one that you can see, but one that you can't see. Down here in the building tile row, you have two wild draws from the bag, and then you'll also be able to take the first player token for the following round. Now, one more thing before we actually show the end of the round. You don't ever have to place a building tile that you took during from one of these spots down here on the bottom row. My opponent took one that actually gave her an extra blue building. She doesn't have another place to put it, but because of her scoring cards over here, she doesn't want to put her blues beyond a level 2. So she doesn't want to place this. She doesn't have to, but it's just out of the game. Now, once everybody has placed all of their players out here, we will first of all take all of our workers back. Then we're just going to reseed the board. And once you have everything set up the way it's supposed to be, the first player token comes back here, and the person that had it is the first person to take a turn. And that's how you continue to play the game until, like I said, in a 2-player game, you play for 4 rounds. In a 3- or 4-player game, you play for 8 rounds. At the end of the 4th or 8th round, you're going to, first of all, score your achievements that are from here. Then you're also going to score all of your sets from your water and your park places. Then you'll score how many points you get from your monument feature tiles. And then everybody scores the points that you get from your cards. Whoever has the most points is the winner. And that's about that for cities. It is not a difficult game, and my final thoughts are pretty simply this. This is a game that has great strategic and tactical possibilities, but on top of that, it's also very simple to teach and very simple to learn. It is not a difficult game at all. It's very procedural, and I think that's what really helps it be so accessible to possibly newer gamers, and I think seasoned gamers are also going to find this enjoyable because it does have that depth and wealth of decision making that you have to make throughout the course of the game. The open draft mechanism that's used during the course of the game is very tight, and it does feel like you very much need to go and get the things that you know you need first, because they might not be there by the time you get back. So there's a lot of really cool things going on with it, and that pretty much encapsulates my final thoughts about the game. This is a game that I didn't really have on my radar until my wife and my stepson saw it at a convention, were interested in it, and that put it on my radar. I started to look at it, started to kind of pursue it, if you want to put it that way. But with that being said, it has a lot of things that I really enjoy. So let's get to my pros and cons. My first pro of the game is that it is tile placement and it's city building. We'll get into a little bit more of that later on, but tile placement is one of my favorite mechanisms because it really kind of taps into that creative side of me that really wants to kind of stretch its legs sometimes. I like the fact that you're going to be choosing cityscape boards or tiles from the board, and you're going to be placing it into your tableau, and you're kind of building out your acreage of your cityscape. And I like that. It's kind of the two-dimensional layer of city building that you kind of get from tile placement sometimes. And I really like that it is a city building game, quite literally, but the tile placement is really one of the main mechanisms, of which I think that there are two really main mechanisms that make up that city building vibe. But tile placement has always been something that I've really, really enjoyed. So I'm glad that this game incorporates that. It's just an evergreen mechanism for me. My second pro for the game is the other half of that city building vibe that this gives us, and it is the three-dimensional version of that, because you're not only building out using tile placement, you're also building up using these different building tokens. And I love the fact that you have to stick with the colors that are on the tiles that you already have. And I love the restrictions that are involved here. And that's kind of a strange thing to say because most people don't like restrictions. But it's really what makes the game tight and makes it flow really well. Because you have to make sure that you go after certain building types once you have chosen those different city tiles. You can look at what's being offered down there on the building row, and then look at what's on the city tile row and kind of see what you're going to want to go after. But the crunchy part there, or the tight part there, is that everybody else can see what you're taking, and they can pretty much try to stop you in that. More often than not, trying to stop one person without having something that you're going for is kind of hurtful to yourself and not as hurtful to the other person. So it's not really a take that or a one of those games that you can really hate draft in, which I also like about it, because I don't necessarily like hate drafting, although with some games it fits the theme. Here, it really doesn't, in my opinion, and I like the fact that they kind of strayed away from it. You can still do it, but it's not really something that's going to really help you unless you're both going for the same thing. I really enjoyed the two-dimensional tile placement part. And then on top of that, they also had that three-dimensional aspect of building up your buildings. And another cool thing about it is that all of these scoring cards give you different ways to score the buildings that are in your tableau. And that's another kind of strategy avenue that you can use in the game. And that is my third pro. And that is the scoring mechanism of the game. There's a number of different ways to score points. It's not really a point salad here because there aren't numerous ways, but there are three different avenues to scoring, and there's multiple facets of each of those, but basically there's just three ways to score. You're scoring your city achievement board goals that everybody is trying to shoot for. You're also shooting for the goals that are going to be your personal goals when you choose them, and that is your scoring cards. And then you're also going to be trying to score points getting sets of unique park and water feature tiles. These are all very simple mechanisms, but they offer a wealth of decision making throughout the course of the game, and that's really what I love about the scoring mechanism of this game. There's a number of different things that keep you interested in how you're going to score points throughout the course of the game, because quite frankly, you don't know how you're going to score all of your points until you get all of those cards. And as you're taking cards, you're also able to be flexible, and I really enjoy that. Another cool thing about the scoring is that there are all of these cities that you can use for the scoring. There's 4 boards that come in the base game, and they're all double-sided, so that's 8 different cities. That's 8 different sets of public goals that you can use. That adds a lot of variability to the game, and I like that. My 4th pro is going to be the component quality. It's really nice, and frankly, the one component that takes center stage here is the bag of building segments that you're going to be putting into your tableau and building up that 3D aspect of the city building mechanism. They're all the same. There's no difference except for the color, but they're just descriptive enough to make it look like a city. Once you have all of your buildings there towards the end of the game, it really looks like a small borough, if you want to make it, if you want to use that word, or a small community in this large city, and I really like that. The other components are also good. The tiles are all good, thick, and durable kinds of cardboard. The first player token is enough to stand out, but it's not overly cumbersome as some first player tokens tend to be. The cards are not bad, but you're not using them. You're not handling them a lot during the course of the game, so they are good enough, if I can put it that way. I do like the fact, though, that the cards look like a cell phone on one side, and it's you using, kind of like a GPS or what have you on the other side. I thought that was a cool graphic design plus. So the components are good, and I think they're great, and I really do like the building pieces that are used in the game. So components gets 2 thumbs up from me. My 5th pro, and this is going to be a little bit of a wonky pro, I guess, because it's not something I usually talk about, but it strikes me as being worthy of mentioning, and it's because Devir is doing this with a lot of their games. It comes in a very nice sized box, and you have a lot of game here in not a large box. That's cool, because we're all looking for ways to save room in our game rooms. We're all looking for ways to fit that next one in before we have to get rid of some more, and this size of a box helps with that. I could see where they would probably want to have a bigger board or something like that and make this box a little bit bigger, but they chose not to. And I think that's a great idea. I think it's cool of them to do that. It's a weird pro, but it's just something that I thought of because there's a lot of games out there that are in really big boxes. Devir is hearing the call, I think, and starting to put their games in smaller boxes, and I just wanted to say that I appreciate that. So it's my 5th pro. As far as cons are concerned here, I do not have any cons. There isn't anything that really strikes me as something that I need to categorize as a bad thing for this game. I will say that some of the they tell you to start with either New York or Rio de Janeiro as your introductory. The other city achievement boards that they have in there and the goals that they have are quite difficult. So be careful, I guess. If you are seasoned gamers and you have a group of seasoned gamers, it wouldn't hurt, I guess, to use one of those more difficult sets of public goals. But I would definitely say that you should follow the rules and start with New York or Rio de Janeiro, whichever you prefer. It's not really a con, just more like a warning. But like I said, I don't have any cons here. This is a great game. I've enjoyed it supremely, and it has worked well also in a gateway experience where some non-gamers have been frequenting some of our game nights, and I was able to teach this to them. They took to it very quickly and did very well as well. So I've seen it succeed in a number of different situations. Gamers have played it and loved it. I've played it and loved it. My wife plays it and loved it. I've played it with new gamers. They loved it. It's just one of those games that hits on all cylinders for me. So my rating on this one is going to be a very high 8 out of 10. It's definitely something that I am going to be keeping in my collection for quite some time. And while it isn't flashy, it's definitely going to be one of those games that I regularly keep and take to my board game nights, because it's something that I know people are probably going to enjoy, and it's something that I can teach to new people easily, and it's going to make that night flourish. It's a great game, and that's what I'm going to give it. 8 out of 10 for me right here on the Dice Tower. That is going to be a seal of approval. So thanks for joining me. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care.